Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And we have finally made it to opening day of the 2039 season. Hasn't been an incredibly eventful offseason for our defending World Series champion Oakland A's, but still a fair amount of changes to our roster as we try to win back-to-back championships here in Oakland and win a third title in the past 4 seasons. Over the last 10 years, we've made the playoffs 8 times, won 3 world championships, had 9 winning seasons, yet we are still stuck with minimal fan loyalty. And we're hoping at some point the strong performance that we've put up on the field will convince the fans that we are here to stay. Unfortunately, John Fisher is still our owner, and I think there is still a fair amount of negativity associated with him being around. But it does seem at this point, with fan interest bordering on exceptional, a very good product that we've been putting on the field, and a ton of fans showing up for our games over the past several seasons, that at some point the fan loyalty should tick up a notch. Hopefully this will be the season when that happens. I mentioned it hasn't been an incredibly eventful offseason for us. That being said, there's still been a lot of turnover on our team. Pitching staff in particular, best pitching staff in baseball a year ago, and it's been an excellent pitching staff for really over a decade at this point. But we've moved on from a lot of people. Our longtime ace, Jackson Ferris, after a decade in Oakland, we allowed him to leave as a free agent. The veteran lefty was the only 3-time World Series champion on the A's, the only player who was part of all of those titles. We also lost longtime starter Kevin Patterson. The youngsters Mike Blumenshine and Dave Baumler are taking their spots in the rotation. And then 3 relievers that have been with us for a long time. Jeremy Scholl, who was once our closer. R.J. Cope, a lefty out of the bullpen for us for many years and a occasional two-way player. And Mike Curtis have all moved on as well. The guys who are replacing them right now, Alan Hunsaker, who we picked up as a free agent, lefty Kevin Carmichael, who we traded for right at the start of the offseason, and then left-handed pitcher Mike Ross, who we picked up as a Rule 5 acquisition, the only Rule 5 player we picked up in the draft this past December. So a lot of changes to the pitching staff, but we are still expecting it to be an excellent rotation this year. As we touched on at the end of the last episode, we are the only team in baseball that were projected to win over 100 games in the simulation that was run. Lineup-wise, a little less turnover. We've got a new backup catcher in Hidetaka Ogata. Right-handed hitting, who is outstanding defensively. Not sure how much he's going to actually hit, but we picked him up, and he will be the backup behind Jorge Mendoza, who will be playing his first year with us. Sam Lishman, a former third-round draft pick almost a decade ago at this point, will get his opportunity to make his major league debut as a utility infielder for us this year. And then the only other kind of new name, and it's not a totally new name, is Sam Gentile, who we picked up in a trade with Cincinnati 2 off seasons ago. Played with us briefly last year, did not do much for us, but we'll get to see what he can do coming off the bench as a right-handed hitting 4th outfielder for us. Other than that, pretty much everyone else is back. The reason Gentile made the team is that we do have some injury issues. Our excellent young closer, Chuck Huntley, out with a sore elbow. Couple of guys who have come up through our system, Jeff Tisch and Juan Campos. Tisch has had a brief cup of coffee in the majors. Campos, because of injury issues, has never actually pitched in the majors. Both injured, although Tisch is starting a rehab assignment today. Tisch is also out of options, so once that rehab assignment is finished, we're going to need to either put him on the major league team or perhaps look to sneak him through waivers or trade him away. But the most important injury, and the one thing that we'll be following closely this season and into next season, is the health of the franchise. Jake Ortega suffered some chronic back soreness in spring training, out for only another 5 days, but we'll probably put him on a brief rehab assignment. But the 31-year-old, coming off of his second AL MVP award last season, is now wrecked physically, so certainly don't love seeing chronic back soreness that has kept him out for an entire month at this point. We did sign him to that contract that ended up working out incredibly well for us after he had, I believe, only 58 major league at-bats with a 155 batting average when we signed him to that contract. So it certainly was no guarantee that it was going to go as well for us as it did. Still have a final team option next season, so he's ours for the next 2 seasons. We would love to have him play his entire career in Oakland. Given, however, his age, he's going to be 32 in August, his wrecked physicality at this point, and the fact that we're still almost 2 years away from having to make that decision, if things go very poorly with his health and he happens to be looking for an insane amount of money given his age and health, it's not inconceivable to me at this point that he could be beginning his second to last season in Oakland this year. The goal is to try to keep him healthy. We're going to hope that we can get 140 plus games out of him each of the next couple seasons, given that he's wrecked, expecting that he'll have some minor stints on the IL here and there. The big thing that we want to avoid is a major stint on the IL, or a season-ending stint. That happened to us 2 seasons ago when he broke his kneecap. Hopefully we won't be dealing with anything like that going forward, but should have Jake Ortega back within the next week and a half to 2 weeks, even with the time that he's going to need in AAA to shake off some of the rust, given that it's been a month since he got injured. And so those are the big stories we are following as we try to guide the A's back into the playoffs and hopefully to another title this year. We'll see how the 2 rookies do at the back end of the rotation. We've got 3 new names in the bullpen, 3 new names as far as everyday players coming off of the bench on our roster. And we've got our ace closer, last year's Mariano Rivera Award winner Chuck Huntley, and the franchise, last year's American League Most Valuable Player Jake Ortega, who should be coming off of the IL, hopefully within the next few weeks. We'll also be tracking some guys in AAA who can help us. Juan Pimentel and Darnell Selvey in particular, the infielder and the outfielder, are pretty close to major league quality. We want to get them action every day at this point. Hopefully still get them as versatile as possible defensively. And we want to ensure that they're playing every day when they're up in the majors, so certainly could see those players sooner rather than later if we have some injuries, but would expect that at the very least we'll see them this September. And it's not inconceivable that either of them may end up making the postseason roster, assuming that we do end up guiding this team back into the playoffs. And a rough first series of the season for our Oakland A's. We lost 3 out of 4 in Texas. Those of you who have been following us over the years with this Oakland A's franchise, and I recognize that most of our loyal viewers are the majority of our audience at this point, and I do appreciate that. But you know that the Rangers are the team that we have been competing with in the AL West for over half a decade at this point. We finally won our second AL West title a year ago, so as we talked about, we've had more World Series championships than AL West titles. But the Rangers and our A's are two of the dominant teams in baseball. We've won 2 out of the last 3 championships. And the Texas Rangers won 2 out of 3 before that. So 4 out of the last 6 World Series titles were in the American League West with our A's and the Rangers. So disappointing to get off to a 1-3 start against them. Lost 6-3 on opening day, and then 3 straight 1-run games. We lost 5-4, and then the last 2 games of the series, we traded 1-0 games. Doug Weiss with a really nice outing for us, getting the win in the 1-0 game that we won. Hunsicker with the hold, and Orozco, who's moved from the stopper role into the closer role with the injury to Huntley with the save. And then I'm assuming it was the rookie Mike Blumenshine who had a nice game for us in game number 4 of the series. Blumenshine just 2 hits, 5 walks, no earned runs over 6 2/3. Blanco off to a brutal start, a 1-3 record for the team, and the reliever who we signed to a front-loaded extension this past off-season after he led the AL with 30 holds and put up a strong 2.65 ERA in 73 games for us last year, has been the loser out of the bullpen in all 3 games he's appeared in the first series of the season. So pretty shocking result for a reliever to be 0-3 through the first 4 games of the season. But Blanco has done that here in 2039. And our A's are off to a brutal start. We lost 2 out of 3 at home against Kansas City, and then 2 out of 3 back at home against Texas. So a 2-5 record against our division rivals, and it's only April 11th. 3-7 record. We're already 3.5 behind in the division. Not surprisingly, the Rangers, who have dominated us, are tied with the Mariners for the division lead. Ortega's injury actually lingered a little bit longer than we would have hoped, but he is now finally healthy. Chuck Huntley healthy, 1 day of IL time left. So going to begin a rehab assignment for Ortega. Huntley, we may not even need it, given his age, and that we were just very conservative with what was really a day-to-day injury that he could have potentially pitched through. Obviously, our team is not this good. I've been making some changes to the minors. Our major league players would clearly be dominant if they were playing in Class A ball, but unfortunately they are not quite that dominant at the major league level. Hopefully the additions over the next several days of Ortega and Huntley back onto the major league roster will help us jumpstart this season. And we've put Huntley right back into the closer role, swapped Orozco back into his stopper role. And that means that we've sent Bobby Garland, who still has this final option year available, down to AAA. Garland has been a really solid pitcher for us over the past 4+ seasons in the majors. Oftentimes took over as our 5th starter in the middle of a season and performed well for us when others had flamed out in that role. And he's done fine in his 1 performance for us this year, allowing just 1 earned run over 2 2/3 innings pitched as our long reliever. But he's coming off of a rough season for him with a 4.36 ERA, a 4-7 record, and he did not do a good job for us in 6 games as a starter a year ago. Love having depth like him in the organization. I think it is a testament to how good our pitching staff is, even with the changes that we made this past off season. Hopefully, we'll be seeing Garland again before too long, but hopefully it won't be because of a very significant issue to one of the members of our pitching staff. And we finally won our first series of the season, taking 2 of 3 against Seattle. Ortega, not surprisingly, has been pretty dominant in 3 games, including 2 starts down in AAA. 3 for 7 with a double, a home run, and 3 ribbies. So we are going to bring the franchise back up, and that will likely mean that Mr. Gentile's heading back to the minors, and Misters Alanis and or Palomares may be getting some less playing time with Ortega back and healthy. And it'll be nice to have Ortega back in the lineup on his traditional number 3 spot in the rotation, playing center field against right-handed pitching. Have used him in left and right field against left-handed pitching at times over the last few seasons to put a bit less wear and tear on him, and we are going to do that this year as well. We've also bumped up his rest status, so if it's below 93% in terms of his fatigue, that he'll get time off. That used to be at 90%, so we're going to be real conservative with him. Palomares will be playing center field for him when he needs time off. We ended up, though, dropping Alanis out of the lineup against left-handed pitching and Palomares out of the lineup against right-handed pitching. Alanis hitting only .220 on the young season, but does at least have a 93 WRC+, so he hasn't been a total disaster. I know some viewers love Palomares, and I was inclined to put Alanis on the bench completely to give Palomares everyday playing time. But unfortunately, Gravedigger hitting just a .149 this year with a 47 WRC plus in his limited playing time. Still has a WAR that is a tenth of a win better than Alanis, thanks probably to his solid defense in center field. But we still think Palomares will be playing reasonably often in center field, given that Ortega is going to be getting a lot of time off. But he just has not hit well enough this year, or quite honestly, as well as I would have hoped over the course of his career. I talked about this in comments with viewers after last season. 254 career hitter at this point for Palomares, which when you look at someone who you think has at times a 60 contact, but still above average contact, well above average gap power, and above average eye, 254 average with a 346 on base percentage is not quite as high as I think we'd get from Palomares, given that, as I said, that contact rating, we've often thought at least it's 60. But the home run power is such an important thing in OOTP, and unfortunately for him, it is quite low. And we did take 3 out of 4 at Detroit in the first series that Ortega was back, and obviously the first series with both Ortega and Huntley on the team. So we've won 5 out of 6 at this point, 5 out of 7 on the road trip to push our record up to 8-9. Good to have gotten this team close to 500 again after that really slow first week and a half of the season. And just a 2-2 record in this latest week. And unfortunately, the bad news that we've been hoping to avoid happens. Jake Ortega, we knew that there were going to be injury issues with him, given that he's wrecked physically and in his 30s now, and just suffered a broken hand, going to be out for 3 to 4 months. So a very similar situation to that broken kneecap that he suffered 2 years ago that cost him a huge portion of the season. The only positive thing I can say about this is that it's only April 23rd, so even if that injury lasts a full 4 months, we should have Ortega back in September and hopefully ready to help us in the playoffs if we can make it to the playoffs without him. 10-11 record, so we're kind of just scuffling along and certainly going to be harder to win without his bat. Extremely small sample size, obviously, over his first 26 at-bats of the season, but he was hitting .346, 3 doubles, 4 runs driven in, had already stolen a couple of bases, put up a 137 WRC plus for us, so definitely a big loss to lose Mr. Ortega for the bulk of this season, but as I said, if we can hold things together without him, he should be healthy for the playoffs, which is more than we were able to say when he broke his knee in June of 2037. But one man's injury and heartbreak in the case of Ortega is another man's opportunity, and we are going to bring up Darnell Selvey, first round pick of ours in 2035, so less than 4 years ago. We picked him as a high school outfielder, 26th overall. Now the number 48 prospect in baseball. He was up briefly at the end of last year in AAA, started him out this year in AAA. He really only has 43 games across the AAA level at this point in his career, but had put up a 175 WRC plus, hitting .329 with 6 homers, 9 doubles in his first 76 at-bats this year at the AAA level. And we're going to give Selvey an opportunity to see if he can maybe provide us some offense similar to Jake Ortega. Certainly not expecting him to be as good as the franchise, but Alanis has continued to struggle. The batting average has dipped to .203, and Palomares has played better since we checked in on him. Still on the interstate, hitting a .197, but he has pulled his WRC plus up to 91, and he is the best defensive center fielder that we have on this team with Ortega gone. So Palomares is going to be our everyday center fielder for the time being. Selvey will be our everyday left fielder, and Mike Alanis is going to move into a utility outfielder role for us, at least for the time being. And some good news as we approach the end of April. We finally gotten the record back to 500 at 13-13, 2.5 games behind in the division. Unfortunately, the young starting pitcher, Mike Blumenshine, pretty severe sprained ankle, going to be out for the next 2 to 3 months. Blumenshine 0-1 with a 5.47 ERA over his first 24 2/3 innings of work. He's a guy that we signed to a long front-loaded contract, 9 years, $55 million before this season began. Certainly not particularly impressive with how this season has started after those first couple of games when he was exceptional. But looking at his ratings, still think it's a contract that should work out well for us over the long term. Unfortunately, he's going to miss a good chunk of his rookie season. And with the injury to Blumenshine, we are going to bring Bobby Garland back up, put him into the long relief role that he had at the start of the season. And we're going to promote Kamani O'Banner into the rotation. You can see outside of our alleged ace, Jesus Saldana, Dora, Weiss, and Baumler, all with ERAs from the low 2s to the low 3s this year and winning records on the season. O'Banner has been solid out of the bullpen. And honestly, the bullpen in general has been outstanding this year. So our pitching is performing the way that we would have hoped by and large. Certainly would expect that Saldana will get better as the season moves on. But we've dug out of that hole to get to 500. And now we'll see if we can survive and thrive over the next several months with both Ortega and Blumenshine on the IL. And we split our final 2 games of the month of April, so we're 14-14 as of May 1st. Certainly not as fine a start to the season as we had hoped, as we're attempting to defend a World Series title. Our number 5 starter now moved up to be our number 4 starter with the injury to Blumenshine. Dave Baumler, American League Rookie of the Month, the young pitcher who was a 6th-round draft pick of ours as a high school player in 2033. 3-1 with a 2.10 ERA on the year, almost a win above replacement already. And it's also Baumler's birthday, as he is named the American League Rookie of the Month. So happy birthday, Dave, and wish you a lot of success going forward. Taking a look at the standings here at 14-14, only 2.5 behind the Rangers, who have been coming back to earth a little bit. Arturo Uresti tied for second in the American League with 8 home runs here a month into the season. And he is the only member of the Oakland A's who's right near the top of any of the key offensive or pitching categories this season. 2.5 behind in the division, and we are 1.5 out of a wild card spot. So despite the disappointing start to the season, we're not in a horrible position. As I noted, figuring out how this team is going to hold up without Mr. Ortega is going to be critical to our success this year. We've talked a lot about already how well the pitching staff is doing. You can see we're second in the American League in runs allowed and in the top 5 or 6 in the league in every pitching category. Good defense as usual. Runs scored, we're middle of the pack, rank 8th this year, and you can see we're kind of in the middle of the pack in a lot of offensive categories. In general, we trend towards the higher end, though, so certainly not disastrous. We've gotten a bit unlucky. Our 14-14 record is 2 games worse than the 16-12 Pythagorean expectations. So if we were playing the way that we should, we would be in a wild card spot and only half a game behind the division. So certainly not anywhere near a panic situation for our Oakland A's as of yet. We'll take a quick look at how some of our new additions have been doing. Only 2, well, I guess 3 now with Selvey new additions on the team. The backup catcher, Hidetate Ogata, outstanding defensively, and he's been more than we could have hoped for at the plate, hitting 320 at-bats with 3 homers and 6 ribbies. So he's put up a monster 217 WRC plus for us and half a win above replacement, despite playing in just 6 games in the first month of the season. Jorge Mendoza has been hitting the way that we hoped he would a year ago when we picked him up as well. 291 average with 3 homers and 11 ribbies. He's put up a 150 WRC plus for us this year, 1.1 WAR already. So finally getting some very solid offensive production out of the catcher position. Sam Lishman, the longtime farmhand, very occasional action for him, is our 6th infielder over the first month of the season, but has been productive, 3 for 8, 375 average in the limited playing time that he has received for us this year. And Darnell Selvey, only 19 at-bats at the major league level, does have 5 hits, including a double. He's walked 5 times, so a 124 WRC plus for him, largely by virtue of those 5 walks in 6 games, boosting his on-base percentage up to 417. Certainly not setting the world on fire so far, but more productive than Alanis has been for us this season. So certainly expect that over the near to medium term, we're going to continue giving the opportunity to the youngster Darnell Selvey, former first-round draft pick. And with that, we're going to finish up the episode. A respectable, but certainly not inspiring start to the season. Don't love that we've got a couple of significant injuries that we're dealing with, particularly with Mr. Ortega. But that was something that, given his age and his wrecked body, that we thought was certainly possible. And as I said, the potential silver lining is that if we're still competing for a playoff position in September, we should have him back then. Hopefully, he'll be a big contributor to our push for the playoffs, and hopefully what will be another long run through the playoffs in October. But we've got a lot of work to do to get to that point, and we'll find out our progress in the months of May and into June in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.